and welcome back to Shovik Sports Shit. I'm Cory.
And I am Austin.
Football season's here. Starts tomorrow. Lots of good matchups. Chiefs Ravens, obviously, we'll talk about here shortly. Also want to give a shout out to our new listeners, going through the analytics, seeing some new people from North Carolina, Virginia, China. Thank you to China. So again, thank you to everybody who's listening, following along. We hope you guys are enjoying our content. Just audio tonight, no video for this week. We're going to get back to creating some visuals, some pictures, because we're going to add a new segment towards the end of the episode today. Let's start with our Shovik's Sports Hits. Number 3, KU up to number 20 in the latest poll. We talked about preview. We just wanted to see them look clean, get out healthy. A little shaky start, but I think for the most part, they got out of there pretty clean and they got out of there healthy.
Yeah. Offense needed a little bit of time to get the rust off. Understandable. New coordinator, essentially a new quarterback. But once they got rolling. Devin Neal did what Devin Neal do. Defense, again, they did what they should have against Lindenwood. Really hard to evaluate what we actually have in a game like that. But being able to sit here and say, I believe we walked away relatively healthy and handled business the way we should have, we'll probably be able to give a more confident dive into what we think we have after the game against Illinois. Still not a powerhouse by any means.
But improved.
But improved for sure. And they're still, it's Illinois. They're still a Power 5 school. No matter how good or bad they may end up this season, it's still a few levels above Lindenwood. And it'll be, I believe, on the road.
Road game. So hostile environment. From what I was seeing, for the first time in a while, Illinois actually sold out.
It's weird. We had not too long ago, we couldn't fill our stadium or anyone else's. And here we are, Illinois selling out for a game against KU. So that's big time, but I liked what I saw from KU, but still a long ways to go before we can really see what we have.
Yeah, so 6 p.m. Saturday, FS1 on the tube. KU opens up as a 5.5-point favorite. This is going to be a little bit different than Lindenwood, obviously. But I think this, JD hadn't played in 300-plus days, so it was nice to see him get a half in under his belt. Glorified preseason game, like we said. So I do expect him to be a little bit better, more locked in this week. Made better decisions with some of his passes. So, again, 6 p.m. Saturday. Again, we continue. I don't think this is going to be the peak. Obviously, we open up in a couple weeks at West Virginia. So, schedule's only going to get tougher from here. So, get out of there healthy.
Yeah, I agree. Glorified preseason game. We'd looked how we should have. JD looked fine. As long as Devin Neal's healthy.
Cole Ballard looked really good.
He did. Again, I think you and I probably could have went out there and ran an okay offense. So, nothing against Lindenwood. The facts are what the facts are. So we'll hopefully be this excited again next week coming off a dub, but maybe be able to give a little more in-depth on what we think KU team actually has.
Yeah, so let's roll through some new contracts. This is number 2 on the old Shovik Sports Hits. First one, 6-time Pro Bowler Cam Hayward, 3-year, $45 million, $29 million in new money, $16 million fully guaranteed. I don't think this guy's ever had a bad season. Injuries obviously cut him short a couple times, but this guy just locks up the middle of the defensive line.
Yeah, I think when we saw that contract news break, I kind of looked at you and just asked, does this dude ever get old? Because even though, he's a special player for the Steelers, it's still a business, and they're not going to pay people who don't produce. So to get a contract like that means he's still huge, literally and figuratively. Good for him. He's always, I don't want to say been a favorite player of mine, but I've always enjoyed watching him. Hopefully we do get to see the few more quality years out of him, but no issues with the contract. Guys deserved it. And hope he just has a healthy season.
Yeah, and then the next one was Brandon Ayuk. The saga continued. We weren't sure how long that saga was going to go. But his 2024 cap hit's going to go from 14.12 to 5.725 mil. So they open up a little bit with that. Again, I think he's a good receiver. I do. I don't think he was good enough to kind of act the way he did and kind of hold them hostage the way he did. Saw multiple reports of him having multiple offers from the 49ers on the table, and he kind of just ghosted them up a little bit, turned the Browns trade down. Apparently there was something on the table from the Steelers. Still ghosts, nothing, and then all of a sudden, boom, pop, contract. So that's not the only 49ers to make the headlines. Trent Williams, $48 million, fully guaranteed at signing. The 25.69 signing bonus that moves him to $103 million in guarantees since joining the Niners in 2021, and he's on track to earn over $250 million in his career. What are your thoughts on Big Trent?
He's the best left tackle in football, so it's not that he wasn't getting paid what he deserved, but I think he realized he had the one last opportunity to get this kind of bag. When you've been the best player at your position for as long as he has, I think he kind of earned that right. He was kind of the exact opposite of Ayuk. He said he had nothing but love and kept nothing but communication open with him and Kyle and John Lynch and everyone, saying that, he understands both sides. They all understood each other. It was kind of the opposite of Ayuk, which he has come out and said that he kind of made that a lot harder than it needed to be. No shit, we all noticed, but thanks for admitting it. But I have no issues with Trent Williams. Brandon Ayuk is still, if you've listened to us, from a fantasy standpoint, I'm huge on Brandon Ayuk, but it's still wild to me that his payday is putting him up there with the Justin Jefferson and soon to be Jamar Chases and stuff as far as annual value. I get it. You're pretty damn good, and good for him for getting that bag, but it's kind of wild to me that that's what he ended up getting. So kind of two different end of the spectrums with Ayuk and Williams on how it was handled, and Trent deserving everything he ended up getting, and Ayuk, I don't want to say doesn't deserve, because who am I to say that, but just from an outsider's point of view, kind of looks like he played it well. If you're looking at the end result,
absolutely.
But good for the Niners. It's kind of a few off seasons now they've done this, taking some contracts down right into week one. But I think there's only one contract left out there now that has question marks around it. But as far as the Niners go, both players are good. They're usually in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, so you want to see your opponents at full strength, no excuses.
Yeah, and I don't think Chase is going to get done. I know that if he's back practicing today, that might signal that maybe they're talking, but typically leading into week one is kind of your last little push to get him done. I think when we come on next week and talk, I still think we're not going to have any more updates on Jamar Chase. I just don't see that happening. Just get paid this year, bank on yourself, and see what happens in the offseason. Another extension, Broncos, lock up Pat Surtain, 4-year, $96 million, $77.5 guaranteed, highest paid defensive back in NFL history. That now makes Quinn Miners on the offense they've locked up, and Pat Surtain on the defensive side locked up. So those are the two building blocks, and hopefully here in the next couple of years, Bo Nix is who we think he's going to be, or I think he's going to be. What's your thoughts on? So he goes to number one. He now makes $24 million per season. Number two is Jair Alexander at 21. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's one of those. You kind of get out ahead of this. I think this now has Surtain locked up for 6 years.
Yep.
Total. So that's going to take him right on into his 30s. It's unheard of, kind of, for a guy to reset a market by $3 or $4 million annually. I love my corners. Everyone who knows me knows that. Dude's good. I'm curious on how the Broncos fans feel, who were pissed off they drafted him over Justin Fields.
Yeah, they're probably silent now, or they're like, no, we didn't want Justin Fields. You're liars. You're liars. We know. We saw it. I saw it on social media all the time. You guys wanted Justin Fields. Quit lying.
Yeah, so it's hard to argue that whether you think he is the best. I don't think there's an argument that he's one of the top 2 or 3 corners. So when a guy like that resets the market, you don't really have an argument. You kind of just look at it as good for Denver. They locked up one of the 2 or 3 best corners in football for 6 years. Probably one more extension or renegotiation by the end of it, but that's down the road. As a Chiefs fan, I think it's a terrible contract. Dude's overrated. One of the worst contracts in football history, but dude's good. So, as a Broncos fan, I bet you're super excited about it. It's one of the he's a player you can't see in another uniform. It's good players switch teams all the time, but superstars and cornerstones, those would be a little harder to let go, and Denver proved that today.
Yeah, and I think the foundation is now starting to be set. Got Russ out of there. Sean's starting to get his kind of guys in there. Pat Shanahan is definitely a Sean Payton's kind of guy. Like I said, you extend Miners, you get him locked up. Now you get Surtain locked up. Now you can start getting some of these veterans kind of pushed out over the next season, 2 seasons. Start getting some of these young guys in, honestly. I do love the move. Hopefully, now that he's gotten the bag, we still see him play at the level he's played at. I don't think he's one of those guys that got the bag and now all of a sudden he's going to just, I got paid. I don't think that's him at all. His dad was an NFL player, pretty good NFL player.
Chiefs legend.
In his respect. So I don't see that happening. So let's go to the last contract extension today. Commanders guard Sam Cosmi signed a 4-year, $74 million extension, includes over $45 million guaranteed. I mean, you wouldn't think much of the Commanders, but again, you have a rookie quarterback, rookie contract, obviously. Keep those pieces in place, and at least you got to have a line for the rookie quarterback.
Man, I love when these big uglies get paid, especially these ones that, no offense to a casual football fan if this actually doesn't ring true, but especially these big uglies who most people probably never heard of or don't really know.
The ones that are actually getting dirty.
Yeah, so true. But it's one of those, like, he's not a superstar, but he's reliable. He's good. I think that's why it looks like it's a lot of money, but that's just kind of where the contracts are going. Big time money, good for him. He's getting paid like he's a really good football player, and he is. I think Commanders are starting to show that they're with the new people in the building. They understand where things need to get locked up and taken care of first. I know they got the quarterback before getting everything around him in place, but you had a chance for Daniels. You're not passing that up. But now they're moving on to the offensive line, the trenches. Wouldn't surprise me if next year or two they really start looking at the weapons. So good for them. Good for Daniels. Good for Sam Cosmi. All around, just I think great value.
Yeah, and one thing I'll make note of, I know when we did our kind of off end of season type thing, we talked a lot of shit on the Commanders. We really did.
So much.
But now you start looking at them and actually looking at them. I don't know if it's this season. I'm not sure. But I do think here in the next year or two, man, they might actually be able to make some noise. They could end up being a team that maybe surprised some people this year. I know we love Dan Campbell. I know you love Dan Quinn. Sorry, as you know, the D coordinator, and I know him as a head coach is still TBD, but he did get to a Super Bowl. So I mean, we know he can coach. I love Cliff Kingsbury as the OC there. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it's this year, but look out for the Commanders soon. Number one, just because I think this is fucking hilarious. Seahawks hosted wide receiver Kadarius Toney for a visit. Could you imagine Kadarius Toney in that wide receivers room with DK and Tyler Lockett and those guys?
Yeah, I mean, we knew his time in the NFL wasn't over. Kind of surprising to bring. I don't know. I don't even really know what to comment on this. I wholeheartedly believe, and I think I mentioned this on a previous episode, where I think his only future now is as a return guy. So I'd like to think that, like, yeah, he might be in the receiver room, but more of like, dude, sit in the corner and don't say a word. Let the big boys actually do the learning and talking. I obviously don't wish anyone to fail. So, you know, if he gets a shot and makes the most of it, good for him. If he does, awesome. I'm still under the belief that it's only as a returner. But like I mentioned previously, I'm not one of the Chiefs fans that ultimately hates him. He was huge in the first Super Bowl for us, or I guess the first of this little streak we're on.
Yeah, the Eagles.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was huge in that. There was a lot of obviously other growing pains and stuff, but still wish the best for him. It would be wild to think that he would be actually joining that receiver room. But hey, you have athleticism like that, you're going to repeatedly get opportunities for a lot. Hell, I think John Ross is still getting passed around the league just because of his athleticism. So good for him. I really do hope the best for him. I don't know if we play the Seahawks this year. If we do, I hope he is receiver one for Chiefs' sake. But I hope the best for him.
Yeah, it was just a host. I didn't see anything about him being signed or anything quite yet. I'm with you, returner, but I still think the Chiefs may have been onto something with having him work out as a running back too. I think with his speed and his, just his agility in general, getting him the ball in a handoff formation type instead of like throwing to him, he may be better in the screen game. Who knows? But I still think that the Chiefs may have had something or may have been onto something with the receiver thing. So I think he could, I don't know, maybe latch onto a team as a practice squad maybe and get some reps in at running back. So again, good for him. Hopefully he lands on his feet. I know Andy Reid had nothing but good things to say about him when that move was made. He said he'd make the trade over again to bring him to Kansas City. So, Andy still thinks highly of him. So that wraps up for the Show of Sports Hits. That was the 3 top stories. Obviously, a lot of contracts that we talked about in that one. Now let's transition over to football. Week 1, Chiefs Ravens tomorrow night, Thursday night football. We got Thursday night football, Friday night football, college football Saturday, all day Sunday and Monday. So I really hope you guys do enjoy these next few days. What's your initial thoughts as we head into week 1, game 1, banner drop, Arrowhead, drunk Chiefs fans who gets drinking in the parking lot all day? That place is going to be wild. And I think you brought up a good point of, last year was the Lions, this year's the Ravens, which means just a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's it's no disrespect to the Lions, but kind of like with the Bengals, there's a little bit of that rivalry with the Ravens. Arrowhead's going to be bumping no matter what game it is and no matter the time. I do think there will be a little extra juice for this one. Because quite frankly, Ravens have been the biggest threat, minus a healthy Joe Burrow Bengals, I suppose, but which is week 2 for those who want to look ahead. No, I think it'll be a good game. Realistically, we usually start kind of slow. Ravens usually start kind of fast. I don't think they're only going to run the ball with running back 6 times anymore. That actually isn't good for us, especially since their running back is not Derrick Henry and not Gus Edwards and Justice Hill and
J.K. Dobbins.
A bunch of good quality running backs, but still none of Derrick Henry's level. I hope it's just a good competitive game. With a little side note that is, even if the Chiefs do lose, don't freak out. It's week 1. We're still like 9 million days away from games that truly matter. Just enjoy the atmosphere. Enjoy football being back. Whether you like the Ravens or not, whether you like the Chiefs or not, these are 2 really good football teams opening the season. So just kind of enjoy it and take it in, and then just hope the Chiefs rail.
So I want to know how often I'm going to come on here weekly and ask teams to not try to get into a shootout with the Chiefs. I think if you listen back to our Super Bowl preview and even after the Super Bowl postgame, I talked about the 49ers. Don't get cute. Don't sit there and try to have Brock Purdy throw 30, 35 times. You got the running backs, use them, especially Christian McCaffrey. They obviously failed. Then you go back prior when they played the Ravens. I think they had that one big run, and then they only ended up finishing with 7 or 8, 9 runs, 13 runs, I think, max, if that.
That's a team I think it's like 16. But if you eliminate Lamar's, I think running backs only had 7.
Yeah, so again, I am again sitting here as a couch coach asking the Ravens Just run the ball. Don't try to get into a shootout. Don't try to get cute. You have all the tools to beat the Chiefs. You really do. You're one of the few teams that actually can say that in the NFL. Give Derrick Henry 20, 25 carries, then bring in his backup and get him 10, 12 carries. Let Lamar run a couple. He'll end up running probably 10 times. Don't have Lamar drop back consistently. I still think if you can run the football and stay ahead of the sticks and set yourself up second medium, third and shorts, you're putting yourself in a pretty good position. Again, first game of the season, loud stadium. What are the penalties going to look like? Are you going to have all the false starts, the encroachments and stuff like that? Again, there's a lot of things the Ravens can do, but I think running the ball is obviously going to be key number one. And then two, the defense. I think the defense in the playoff game actually did really well. Mike McDonald no longer there, but I mean, they blitzed quite a bit towards the end, which kind of backfired a little bit on them. But they're a team that they don't have to blitz. They have good enough secondary coverage, linebackers, where make Patrick, sit back there and have to look a little bit. Don't let him improvise, because once he gets out of the pocket, you're screwed. So, what do you think the Ravens defensively must do?
Honestly, I think they need to they need to game plan against Patrick like teams would against Lamar. Contain pass rush, keep him in the pocket. I know that's really weird to talk about a quarterback who's not Lamar. You do that against Lamar because you don't want him to have the threat of running and to just use his arm. It's a little different with Patty, like you said. Obviously, still a really good pocket passer. We're not saying he's dog shit.
Yeah.
But he's lethal when he improvises, when he can run around. If he runs around long enough, Travis Kelce will get open. They've proven that for a decade now. That you let Patrick Mahomes run in circles for 15 seconds, Travis is going to come open. So I think they need to approach it like a teams would with Lamar. Just contain pass rush. Don't let him escape. And just play coverage. You have really good linebackers, safeties, corners to do that. So I know teams kind of play the Ravens are a little different. They are who they are. They don't really adjust. Most teams play too deep and dare us to run. I think you're going to see that a little less now, just given how much of a threat Pacheco is. So I think the Ravens just approach this as best chance is treat them like try to make him a pocket passer. Whether they can do that or not, whole different thing. But that should be the game plan. Like both defenses should be having the same game plan for the opposing quarterback, just for two different reasons. We don't want Lamar to run, and the Ravens don't want Patrick to be able to improvise.
And I think with the new weapons, mainly Xavier Worthy, one of those things that I think you need to be cautious of too if you're the Ravens defense is obviously he's not fast, Patrick Mahomes that is, but he can still sneak in a 20-yard run. It's weird. It is so weird to me how everyone turns their back, their man coverage, everything else, and then he's just like, oh, cool. And then he takes off and scampers for 15, 20 yards out of nowhere. So I think they need to be mindful of that, especially on a third and long. It seems like when the defense may have the Chiefs up against the wall, he just somehow manages to sneak in a run. Another thing, and I would be really, really dumb not to mention it, is Samaje Perine. Chiefs picked him up. Didn't even practice squad him. Now you're coming straight up to the active roster. You're playing. He's good to go. He will play tomorrow. Just a receiving option right there. So those dump offs, he can house them essentially. One of the better receiving backs that we've had over the last 5 years. Again, I don't agree with how Denver utilized him last year, but in crunch time, he still finished with like 12 targets, 10 catches. So he's a guy that can just benefit. The Chiefs can benefit with in the screen game and blitz pickup. The dude.
I was going to say, I think the biggest impact might be his pass pro. Starting a rookie left tackle in a moment like this, having a guy like him on those 100%, those passing downs. You'd like to think by mid-season or end of season that tackle can handle his own, but I think this first few weeks, having someone like Perine who can help chip or help pick up that side with the rookie. I think that's going to be the biggest benefactor from a Pirine, and that was kind of the unnoticed thing of McKinnon. Because let's be honest, fans, Pirine is coming in, and he is the new McKinnon, plain and simple. Yeah. And McKinnon was he was a lethal receiver with Andy, but no one ever mentioned his pass protection. That's huge, and it's the exact same with Pirine.
And it's also another guy who can pull a linebacker from the middle of the field when he goes out to the flats, right? So now you got Pirine running a flat route, and your linebackers are mindful of the dump down. Now you open up the middle of the field for Rashee Rice, Worthy, Travis, who loves to run those stick routes. I mean, it opens up so much more, and it's not that Pacheco can't do that. It's just that I think Pirine's the proven receiving back out of this, and he just brings another element that the Chiefs love to use. I think Chiefs run screens more than most teams.
Definitely run them more effectively.
Yeah, nothing like Pirine going to be able to go out there, chip a D in, knock him on his ass, and then boom, catches the ball and takes it 15 yards. That's just what he's going to be able to do. Or, hey, I got a middle pressure up the middle, which it'll happen. I know Creed Humphrey, is as good as he is, he's not going to be able to just stop 2 or 3 guys coming through there, but Pirine's going to be there. So, again, I think that's another sneaky element, and I don't know if enough people are talking about Samaje Perine getting picked up by the Chiefs.
Yeah, and we kind of said all these things when Sean Payton picked him up last year. And it's surprising that Payton didn't quite use him the way that he wanted or the way that we thought. Make no mistake, Andy Reid will.
Yeah.
Just remember all the Glory McKinnon days, and that's what Pirine's going to be. And Pacheco, the way he runs, I mean, every year he misses a game or two or a few series. No disrespect to Clyde. I hope he gets his shit figured out and whatnot. Yep. But Pirine's about as good of a number 2 running back as we've had in a while. So those fill-in weeks, let's not overlook the fact that he did it in Cincinnati a couple times with Mixon, where he came in, carried the rock 20-plus times, and had 25 total touches. He can also be that guy.
And ball security, I think he fumbled 1 time.
This is going to be a pickup that we're looking at mid-season, end of the year, where no one's talking about it now, but mid-season, end of the season, people are going to be like, wow, this was one of those under-the-radar signings that has had a massive impact for a team. And we just wanted to break it to you first because that's what we do.
And just because they'll probably, it's like the only stat they'll ever show for Pirine is his 400-yard game against KU in college. We've moved on from that.
We're not the same team.
We've moved on from that. Congratulations to him. But goddamn, he's been in the NFL long enough. Put his NFL stats up there. Show his NFL career stats. Quit showing the game against KU. That has no bearing on the NFL. None at all. We've moved on. So that's just what I'm going to throw out there. Let's shift over to the Chiefs defense. I know this is a unit that most are pretty excited about. I know there's still a few question marks. They're going to have to literally be disciplined in this game. Again, with the whole read option effect, Derrick Henry, the RPOs, it could be a big game for Mark Andrews, just based on the RPOs and all that. Is there a certain part of the defense that you want to talk about that you're worried about, or do you want to start with what you're really, really looking forward to seeing?
Well, we can talk about what I'm looking forward to seeing, because if you've listened to the show, you already know what I'm going to say. I'm excited to watch George Karlaftis. The dude's gotten better and better each season. Don't know if people pay as much attention to one specific player on defense, but he was crucial in some of those Lamar scrambles in the playoff game last year. He was crucial against the Niners on recovering the fumble and not letting many runs get to the edge. But I also think week 1, he's been working out with Chiefs legend Tamba Ali a lot. I think this is a season where he gets into that 15-sack range, where he really cements himself as a serious defensive end presence. So that's what I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to watch his growth. I'm just excited to see his motor. Those high motor people are always fun to watch, but it's even better when it's a player that you kind of just always liked anyway.
Yes, I know you're probably going to bring him up later, but let's talk about the rookie safety. Reading a lot of good stuff on him. He's obviously not starting. That's obviously Justin Reed and I think Brian Cook.
Yep.
But this guy's going to get on the field one way or the other. Spags always rotates guys in. I think that's a huge piece that, again, I don't think enough people really talk about is the depth the Chiefs have been able to build on their defense. I know you lost Willie Gay. I don't think that's going to be as big of a loss as some may think. Because, again, your front, I still think your defensive line's your strength. And then you got Bolton. As long as he stays healthy, I think he missed a couple games last year, which he did. When he did get hurt last year, you guys definitely felt the pain of that one, just because that is that's the anchor. So I think that was a huge loss in the Broncos game, because he's beaten the Broncos by himself a couple times. Shocker. But let's talk about the young guys in the secondary. The corners could be a little hezzy on certain aspects of it. Luckily, the Ravens don't have like superstar receivers. Zay Flowers is good, but we saw what he did in the playoff game, right? So, is there anybody in the secondary that you're looking forward to seeing? Is there someone in the secondary that you're really super nervous about?
Yeah, I'm trying to recap on all you said. I agree that the Willie Gay loss isn't going to be huge. This is one of the games where I think you might notice the loss of Willie Gay hurt a little bit. He was always our QB spy, and he was always a really good one. I do think that's actually not every down, but I do think that's why that rookie safety, Jaden Hicks, is going to play quite a bit for us. I think he's going to be kind of that box safety / linebacker, cover the tight end in short routes, flat routes with the running back, but also the QB spy, Lamar Jackson. So,
and that's also that's a position where Spags is always good at disguising. You saw it with, Honey Badger. He just couldn't tackle, but he still came down and disguised really well. So yeah, I think that's actually a really good spot for him.
Yeah, and truth be told, we may not have like a single best safety in football, but I would put our entire safety room against anybody else's entire safety room. I think we have 3 studs, barring how Cook comes back from injury.
He was coming on, yeah.
Is it going to be one of those like Juan Thornhill who just never quite seemed to come back to that Pro Bowl level after his injury? But if he comes back and keeps progressing on the path that he was, between him, Reed, and Hicks, really good secondary as far as safeties. But you're spot on. Corners is what I'm going to be most worried about. Outside of Trent McDuffie, I thought I was going to feel good about Williams and Watson as the other two. Just a couple years ago, we had 3 rookies starting in the Super Bowl with McDuffie, Williams, Watson. It hasn't felt like Williams and Watson have progressed to the level of where we should be super comfortable right now with them out there. So I am curious to see what that does to our play calling. Spags is someone who likes to leave our outside corners on an island, and you can do that when you have, the luxurious needs of the world out there. So I agree. Our front 7, I'm comfortable with. I'm all the disguises and kind of the hybrid safeties that we can mix in there. I'm okay with that part. I'm okay with our safeties. But I'm curious to see if we keep McDuffie in the slot or if he truly takes on that Snead role and follows the best receiver around. Yeah, I know it's a big game and we want to win, but week 1, it's still going to be learning as far as the defensive side of the ball goes. You kind of know what to expect offensively, but defense, we just don't know. Some new rookies, the loss of Snead, we really don't know what to expect. So I can get what I think is going to happen. I think we call a way more bend but don't break defense week 1. Not quite as aggressive as we usually see from Spags in big games and late in the season. I think we're going to have a lot of bend but don't break. Maybe a few more stacked boxes to try to make Lamar throw. If we're able to even stop Derrick Henry with stacked boxes, I don't know. It's Derrick Henry, but that's really, everyone loves the offense, but that's what I'm going to be watching week 1 is just to kind of see how we what we do with our defense, what calls are we doing, who's lining up where, how fancy are we getting, and then what you alluded to, like what's the snap count for some of these people? Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited, but at the same time, like just kind of like change your expectations a little bit with our defense. You lose someone like Snead, it's going to take a whole village and some trial and error to try to replace someone like that. So yeah, I don't know what to expect, but I am excited.
Yeah, so again, I said Willie Gay wasn't going to be a massive loss. Maybe for this game it could be noted, right? But the one that you're going to feel right away, and even with this game also, is Darius Snead. He was that nasty physical corner. He jams guys at the line. He's a tackler. Moves on to Tennessee. So now you do have to fill that. Someone's got to fill that role. You can't just leave it open, right? So, yeah, I think that's a huge, huge loss. I think as the season progresses, though, they'll get better and they'll start getting an idea of who's going to do what. But yeah, that's one area I'm curious on, is the secondary, or the corners at least. Because I think you kind of know what you're getting from the rest of it. Chris Jones. I mean, we didn't have to bring Chris Jones up because we kind of already expected Chris Jones is going to do Chris Jones things. Is it Mike Purcell? Or who am I thinking of?
Mike Pennell.
Pennell.
Guy.
Yeah. So let's talk about him. Comes up big. You wanted them to keep him. They reward the guy. He deserves it. Talk about the big ugly for a minute.
Yeah. It's kind of one of my favorite moves of the offseason for the Chiefs. No disrespect to Trent Williams. I already alluded to earlier that he's the best left tackle in football. But somebody pissed in his Cheerios Super Bowl day because Mike Pennell was just running shop on him. And I'm not here to say Mike Pennell is going to end up being an All-Pro this year. But you show up in the not just a game, you show up in the Super Bowl, kind of not really having a lot of reps under your belt, a lot of snaps, which might have helped. He might have been fresh as hell. I don't know. Either way, he was a huge reason we won the Super Bowl, plain and simple, from a defensive point of view anyway. I would love the fact that the Chiefs rewarded him with an actual contract on the active roster.
It's not like they didn't even break the bank for him either.
No.
But he's still got a deserving payday. I mean, he's still going to be set.
Yeah, he's not going to have to worry about like the league minimum anymore, wondering if, how long am I spending on the practice squad, any of that. Probably doesn't get the amount of love because he's not your typical inside guy anymore. He's not going to get 10 sacks in the season. You've heard me say this sentence plenty of times on this episode, and you'll probably hear it plenty more, but it's a dude who just goes out and does his damn job. Those dudes are valuable. Maybe not Justin Jefferson money valuable or whatnot, but they're valuable. I think having him and Chris Jones in the middle, at some point in mini, he will be back. We have Mike Dana and George on the edge. The Cam Thomas pickup from the Cardinals was huge.
Yep.
You'd like to think Felix, I'm not even going to say his name, the first-round pick from K-State, you'd like to think that he's going to get a little PT and will hopefully show with it. But, yeah, our defensive line, we were worried about it last year going into week one mostly because Chris Jones was sitting in a press box up in the suites. This year, it's like the exact opposite. I'm healthy. What our roster is now on the defensive line, I think he nailed it. I think it's one of our strengths. We have depth. We have kind of a little bit of everything, a little bit of speed, a little bit of power, complementary pieces. And Mike Pennell is just that big ugly in the middle. He's just going to go do his job. It's not going to be sexy. It's not going to be flashy. It might not even stuff the stat sheet. But there's going to be a couple plays where he's out there and you're going to be like, I am just really glad that he's out there. And I'm really glad that he is just wanting to do his job.
Yeah, so we'll get to a prediction here in a second. Let's talk about the kickers. Two of the better ones, two of the best ones.
It's not. It is the two best.
The two best. Justin Tucker, Harrison Butker. I'm going to make my prediction first. Let you it's your team. I'll let you go second so you have a little extra time to spit some stuff in there that you want. I think it's going to come down to field goal kickers. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think both defenses are going to show out. takes the offense a few weeks to get like in sync. And, these, at least on the Chiefs side, Andy always plays the starters except for the last game. But these guys got reps in the preseason. That's always how Andy Reid's done things. But again, they still need more reps. I'm going 2017. I think Harrison Butker's going to hit the game winner. Because I picked the Ravens last time in this situation, and they didn't hold to their end. I just think it's too much. It's a road game. Again, Arrowhead's going to be rocking, banners dropping. I think there's a little extra juice in this game, a little extra meaning to it, just because this game could. That's week one. Not going to determine who's the 1 seed or whatnot, but
we do know the tiebreaker.
Exactly.
This will have implications.
So when you get to week 14, 15, when you're trying to get the seedings lined out, the AFC is a fucking gauntlet for one, and we'll talk about that more later on down the road. But this game's bigger than some think. Again, tiebreaker, whatnot. But I still think I'll give the Chiefs the home field edge. And there's not Kadarius Toney to go through his hands. So 2017, market, Chiefs, get the dub.
I agree with you. Not on the score or necessarily how what it's going to come down to win. I do think it'll be a defensive game, like you said, which is if this was like a Week 9 game, I'd be predicting like 49-45 when these offenses are humming, hopefully. I do think, maybe not a bold prediction, I do think Chiefs get I do think they get a special teams touchdown.
Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting to see how the special teams goes.
Well, and I was going to say opening kickoff, but we may not receive it. I think Dave Tube was once known as the best special teams coach in football. Our special teams has kind of taken a dive outside of field goal kicking recently. I think he has something up his sleeve for the new kickoff rule. So if we receive the opening kickoff, it's going to be house for a touchdown. That's my bold prediction. If we don't receive it, then we obviously can't return it for a touchdown. So just ignore that if we don't. But I think Chiefs win 27-21. I think with that special teams touchdowns, I still think Chiefs I don't know. I think they've been amped up for this season since the moment they won the last Super Bowl. In the interviews immediately after, they weren't even talking about celebrating. They were talking about focusing on this year and getting that three-peat. I think that's kind of what was missing from last year. They didn't come in as laser focused as maybe they should have.
Yeah, you had the Chris Jones stuff going on.
A bunch of drama. Yeah, but Well, I don't want to say drama. I'm not saying Chris Jones didn't deserve to do what he needed to get the bag. But you had a lot of outside noise or non-football related noise per se on the field. Yep. So I think them being laser focused, it actually wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs offense comes out and just goes off. It's one of those where you don't know what to expect, so that might just be me hoping that's what happens. But I think we've even heard me mention a little bit before going into the Super Bowl that Chiefs last season just didn't quite seem focused, kind of lackadaisical, and that's not like an Andy Reid team either. So I think it was just weird. You saw what they looked like when they locked in the postseason. Plain and simple. I think they're going to come out this game. Granted, it might not turn into points or even a win, but I think there's going to be a higher level of focus. So I think they find a way to get a couple touchdowns offensively. I do think it's just going to be a high volume of punts, quite frankly.
Your new punter.
Yeah. Ariza, whatever. Good for him to get another shot in football after his legal issues. The downfall to watch with him is a kicker like that can outkick his coverage a lot.
Yep.
So that'll be something to watch, but it's going to be fun. I think we're going to see a level of focus from the Chiefs that we didn't quite see from the last regular season, and I think they're going to throw a wrinkle in. We're going to run a lot more under center stuff, 2 tight end, stretch plays, counter plays, instead of our one running play being the inside zone. I think we're going to try to actually make an emphasis on developing an actual run game Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're going to run 30 times. I think we're going to just be more creative with the runs we do use. That'll open up a few more kind of naked bootleg play action to try to get some of those deep shots. I think we busted a couple of those out this game. We didn't invest and make as many moves in the tight end room as we did to not have something up our sleeves with them. You don't trade a draft pick going into the season for a fourth tight end if you don't plan on using a decent amount of tight ends and tight end formations. So those are my bold predictions, kind of a special teams touchdown, a little more wrinkles in the Chiefs offense and different looks, ultimately leading to a 27-21 win.
Perfect. 27-21, 20-17. Both have the Chiefs. Again, that's week one. We'll see how we did when we come on next week and we discuss it. Let's spend a couple minutes. We won't spend as much time on the Broncos Seahawks. There are a few things that I'm super excited about. Bo Nix obviously being one of them, named captain today. It's a tough road game for your first game as an NFL player.
At the second loudest stadium in football, Seahawks fans.
There you go. You heard it here. Well, you should have already known that. But either way, quit trying to claim the loudest stadium. You're loud, but you're not. You're still second loud. That could pose a problem, obviously, rookie quarterback. But I'm excited because I think Sean's going to open up the playbook a little bit more. It's a quick release. I think they're going to run the football. I think our defense is still going to be pretty good. Outside the shaky linebacker play, Cody Barton, Alex Singleton were listed today as starting linebackers. Scares me a little bit. It does. But luckily we have a matchup where I think the linebackers should be fine. But again, there's so many other things that I'm going to watch for. I want to see how the play calls get called in. Are they giving themselves enough time, or are we taking the play clock all the way down? Everything opposite of what Russell Wilson did week one when he played in Seattle. It's a new beginning, hopefully. But still so many question marks. I am going to go ahead and say Denver wins 34-27. Again, I think Sean's going to have a game plan going up against a rookie head coach. The defense is going to be good at some point. Again, it's week one. I think experience may come into play here. But I know that was your coach of the year pick, Mike McDonald, coming over from Baltimore. But again, I think in the end, I think Bo Nix is going to be able to get it done. And then we can look forward to the week 2 matchup where Russ comes back to Denver.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Just as a Chiefs fan, I hate Denver. But you should take that into consideration with what I'm about to say. I hate Denver, but I don't understand why everyone thinks they're going to suck this year. This is kind of, I don't know, not a wake-up call, but just a reminder that Bo Nix is a really good football player. I don't know where the hate from him comes. I don't know where it comes from. I wholeheartedly think Denver's going to be, I'm not going to sit here and say they're a 13-win team or anything, but they're a competitive team. And I believe that right now. I agree with what you said. Seahawks will be a really good defense. It's not going to happen overnight. I think Bo Nix is going to be just fine. That's kind of I don't want to say homecoming for him.
Close.
I think he'll do just fine. He's played in some big environments before. That's kind of one of the perks of where big-time college football games are at now. You get those crowds of 100,000 in college football. I actually think Bo Nix is going to go off this week. I think Denver wins 38-17.
Hey,
I'm not a big Geno Smith believer. I don't think he can go out there and win a shootout. I think Surtain is going to be able to lock down DK pretty well enough to where Geno can't make the throws. There's not going to be huge windows there, so if Geno tries, it's either going to be incomplete or picked off. Unless he comes out dropping dimes, then I'm going to eat my words next week. But I think the Denver team is slept on a little bit more than they should be. Everyone's all up in the air about the Bears and their rookie quarterback and think they're the next great team. With that kind of thinking, why is it any different with Bo Nix? Not saying he's a generational talent, but I think he's also in a better situation, which kind of narrows the gap a little bit. But there's a lot of hate for this Denver team. A lot of it coming from me just as a fan. But realistically, I don't understand. You have one of the most accurate quarterbacks that's ever been on a competitive football field, paired with Sean Payton, paired with really good weapons, paired with a good to above average offensive line. I'm trying not to overdo it.
Well, they still have some growing up to do.
They do. And there might be a couple moments in this game where Bo Nix is like, shit, I need to learn from it. But not enough to cost the game. I think Sean Payton, I think Bo Nix, I think they're both ready to come out and just have everyone shut the hell up.
Yeah, this definitely seems like a Sean Payton flex and Dick game, honestly.
It does. And Bo Nix is competitive enough. And, I mean, he's young enough. Well, kind of old, but also young enough.
Right.
I mean, he hears what people say. Yep. You know, they see that people think they're going to win 3 games and maybe have the first overall pick. They see the level of disrespect. And I know it's a league where you have to come out and prove it before you get respect, but it's kind of not anymore. We're crowning a lot of these rookies. We're crowning them as all pros and Pro Bowlers and champions before they ever take a snap. So why is it different here? So I'm not saying it's going to translate to a lot of wins, but Denver is going to be way more competitive than what people are saying. And I do think this is what'd you say, flex Dick game for Sean Payton and Bo Nix. I hate to see it, but I don't know. I don't see where all the hate's coming from. Like, me as a fan, I get it. I'm not supposed to like Denver, and I don't. But from a realistic standpoint, like, I don't understand. Sean Payton's done nothing to think he's a bad coach. Bo Nix has done nothing to think he won't be good. And then they have a bunch of veterans all over the field who have already proven they belong in the league. So I don't quite understand it. It wouldn't hurt my feelings if Denver comes out and gets their dick slapped. Obviously, I don't think it'll happen, but it's just kind of weird they're getting as much hate as they are.
Yeah, and all training camp and preseason stuff, I was listening to some Denver media, and they said the vibe was just a little different. Now, vibes are vibes, right? That doesn't necessarily mean anything.
It means a lot, though.
But it does. It's not.
We can bring up KU football as just a vibe check.
True. And
these are a lot of the same players that won nothing.
And you listen to Mike McGlinchey talk about what he loves so much about Bo Nix is he's authentically himself. I think that's kind of a cryptic shot at Russ a little bit. Javonte said that he doesn't think Bo Nix is going to need to implement a wristband for the huddle. Again, these guys are close. That's all I was hearing from the Denver media at training camp was this was a close group. They got each other's backs, essentially. While I would love to see a 38-17 victory, I still think it's just a touchdown. But I also want to point out, kind of like what you said about the Chiefs, if the Chiefs lose their first game, if Bo Nix goes out and has a bad game, just remember, Troy Aikman went 1-15.
Well, yeah, and Peyton Manning had like 100 interceptions his rookie year.
So I'm asking you guys, and I'm asking myself also, to not freak out if he has a bad game. It's going to happen. It's going to have growing pains. It's kind of like what I want with KU football. Just cut the penalties down, get out healthy, go week to week, right?
Be competitive. Give yourself a chance to win.
So we both picked our teams to win this week. Shocker. I promise we're not going to pick them to win every week.
I might.
Well, same. But so let's end this real quick. We'll introduce a new segment that we want to do at the end of shows. So we'll end it with our fantasy sleeper of the week and our fantasy bust of the week. Now what we're going to do is we're each going to give you our fantasy sleeper and a fantasy bust. And then next week when we come back on, part of Shovik Sports Hits is going to be reviewing our fantasy sleeper or bust, just to kind of gauge of, are we giving you guys good information? Again, we're not telling you what to do. This is just us giving you our fantasy sleeper. So I'll start. No surprise, my sleeper is going to be Javonte. He's healthy this year. I think he's going to get a pretty good workload. I think Denver is going to want to run the football to try to help Bo Nix out. I'm absolutely going to have Javonte Williams in my fantasy lineup for this week. I'm not sitting here saying he's going to go off and have 30 points, but look to get the 15 to 17 point range. I think still pretty good. Yeah,
I'm a big Javonte fan. He's kind of getting the Cooper Cup treatment. He was hurt. People forget about him now. Still a supremely talented guy. Wild that people kind of just wrote him off, but I like that pick. My sleeper pick is going to be a quarterback. I'll probably go quarterback a lot just for a simple fact. I don't know. It's a crapshoot on all the other positions, honestly, but
really, that's fantasy football.
It is. My sleeper for quarterbacks is Baker Mayfield this week.
Woke up feeling cheesy, coach. Oh wait,
I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a Baker fan. He's owned in just about 30% of leagues. Not saying that's wrong. There is a lot of quarterbacks better, but this week, I don't know. I like his matchup. He's got healthy weapons around him. An extremely favorable matchup. He's got a healthy Evans and Godwin for at least this week, or for at least a few plays. So I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be considered a sleeper pick, but just knowing he's not owned by a lot of leagues, I haven't looked, but I'm sure his projections are in like the 14 to 15 point range, which is absolutely absurd. I think he cracks the top 10 finishes for the week. This isn't me telling you to go drop Joe Burrow for Baker Mayfield by any means, but if you're a zero quarterback guy and you stack the rest of your roster thinking you can pick a quarterback up here or there, I like Baker Mayfield a lot week 1 against the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm actually grown into be a Baker fan the last few years, just from what he's done. I think he kind of got the shaft in Cleveland. Get drafted by one coach who didn't want you, and then the next coach they hired didn't want anything to do with you, gets rid of you. And I mean, honestly, kind of gets a bad rap. But I do like him. I like the Bucs' weapons. I think the NFC South is going to be a pretty competitive division this year. Usually we say
minus Panthers.
I still think the Panthers make a good jump this year. I don't know if it's good enough to win the division, but I do think the Bucs could have the potential of beating out the Falcons for the division. Again, long season, who knows, but we'll look back on that later on. Who's your bust?
My bust, I'm sticking with quarterbacks. And this one I think is probably not going to get a great reception, but my bust for the week is Anthony Richardson. Look, the excitement's there. I get it. Dude hasn't played football in like a year. Like good competitive regular season, meaningful football in a long time. Has a couple banged up people around him. And let's not forget that he has a tough matchup with the Texans. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, Stingley. Like, he doesn't have an easy matchup this week either. So his first meaningful football in like a year is going to come against a really tough opponent. Now I get it. His rushing floor could be there. But I think I'm considering it a bust just because everyone has him in that top 5 to 6 range. That's a little rich for my blood. I don't think he gets there right away, especially in a matchup like this. Again, I'm not telling you to drop Anthony Richardson and pick up Baker Mayfield. What I am saying is if you drafted 2 quarterbacks and you have someone else, week 1 might not be a bad idea to just see what Anthony Richardson's about. I get the long-term feel with him is there. I get it. Again, this is week 1 bust. This isn't season-long bust. I don't think Anthony Richardson finishes in his top 5 to 6 range.
For this week.
Yes.
Yep. Just remember, these are just weekly picks, not saying the whole season. If you listen to our fantasy quarterback preview, we were pretty high on Anthony Richardson. Brutal matchup week 1, a division opponent,
Good one.
A sleeper Super Bowl team, honestly, depending on a lot of things. But I don't think there's going to be many teams sleeping on the Texans, so I like that pick for you. Mine's Deshaun Watson. The dude hasn't done shit since he got to Cleveland, and I was a huge Deshaun Watson fan coming out of Clemson. But man, talk about disappointment. Talk about a terrible contract. And maybe that plays a part in it. Dude's always hurt. He says he's fine for this week. I don't think he's fine. So that's going to be my bust for the week. I don't know about Deshaun Watson anymore. I'd hate to be the end for him because I do think he's a talented guy. He just hasn't shown anything while he's been in Cleveland. And Cleveland kind of needs him to be the guy. That their defense is good enough. But they're in probably one of the best division in football.
It's crazy to think about or almost to the point to where Deshaun isn't even going to be able to be considered a bust. I still think there's a little bit of hope there. But I mean, even a half a season more of what you said given, we might just end up chalking him up to just not a good quarterback anymore.
So we'll review those next week. It'll be the first part of our episode. We'll look back. He's taken Anthony Richardson as his bust. I'm taking Deshaun Watson. We'll review those next week. Again, just audio this week. We'll get back to making the videos next week when we get some graphics up for you guys. Find us on Apple, Spotify, iHeart. Thanks again to our new listeners. We hope you guys are enjoying it and sharing this with your friends. Make sure to come find us on Instagram. Start following us on Instagram. We follow everybody back. And we also we love interacting with you guys on Instagram. Thanks to those guys who have commented on some of our posts. We've already given you guys shout outs and we talked about those. So keep the comments coming. We'll talk to you guys next week.